Greetings, aviators. Welcome back to another video. Today's not exactly a flying day, as you can quite tell. So, unless you're IFR qualified and have to be somewhere, today's not a great day for flying. So, we're going to go back into the hangar. We're going to do a few things on this thing. Stick around.
My name is Christopher. I've been a commercial aircraft mechanic for 3 decades. I started in general aviation and always wanted to fly, but I got that chance several years ago and earned my private pilot license. I'm single-engine sea and land rated with a high power and tailwheel endorsement. And now I'm sharing my passion in hopes it will inspire others to pursue their dreams. So I invite you to take a seat and ride along with me as we look at the world from above.
Well, today we're just going to be doing some upgrades. Everything on the airplane's been running really well, except there's this annoying little seepage coming out of the landing gear, and it goes streaking down the belly of the airplane. It's just a pain to clean it up constantly. So I have had a spare set of struts that I had sent out to have some hard chrome done. You want to make sure if you're going to be plating or repairing some of your hydraulic systems, regular chrome can flake off, and that's really not good getting into some of those components. So we're going to go over the details of the shock struts, and then I'm going to show you some little tips that I use and some tools if you want to change the struts on your airplane. Okay. First thing before we get to getting on the airplane, some of the things you're going to need as far as safety and equipment is one of these. This is a jack adapter, and that's what we're going to use to raise and lower the airplane. I also have made up a couple of these angle irons, and this is the same dimension from here down to here as the length of the shock strut. When you take the bolt loose from probably the top one more than anything, when you take that top bolt loose, that's going to let the landing gear swing, and if it swings too much, it could damage a couple things. So if you need to roll your airplane around, or if it needs to sit on the gear for any particular length of time, using these will substitute for the shock struts in the meantime. So just for, you don't want to go flying with these things, because that would make your gear solid. So, and then the last thing is the stand that I made, and this will go in place of where the jacking point is. And again, if you want to find out where all your jacking points are at, you can look in the service manual. There's one that's directly in between the gear, and you'll see a brace that comes down with a flat plate, and that's where you want to make your supports at. Oddly enough, there's actually a procedure for lifting the airplane from the motor mounts with some rope. Man, it was the 40s, man. They could do whatever they want. So we're going to access the belly pan and get everything ready for pulling out the struts, and then we'll get a good look around and show you the things to be on the lookout when you're changing your struts. So this is the stand that I fabric-cobbled together to do the gear swap when I rebuilt the airplane. So it's just a pretty simple design. It's about 24 inches tall, and that's just about the right height.
Keep track of your hardware. So in order to get this panel off, you're going to have to take off your skirts. Nothing like dropping your skirts on an airplane.
For these last two fasteners right here for the skirt fairing, As you can see, the strut fairing is in the way, and either take that strut fairing off, you can get your hands on one of these little 90-degree screwdrivers or 90-degree ratchets and a bit. You can get down in there without having to take off your strut fairings.
Mind your screws. So this is what it looks like underneath. These are your shock struts, and they cantilever off of the landing gear right here. By the way, this is the tube for your elevators. Up here is your, and here is the stop for your elevator travel. So when your flap handle goes up,
so what we'll end up doing is taking this bolt and that bolt loose after we get the airplane jacked up. Thing to keep an eye on is your wingtips. As you're jacking up the airplane, that wingtip is going to drop pretty low.
so with all the considerable weight of the engine, full tanks, the stand is put underneath the jack point along the vertical upright to support all the weight.
Sorry, the lighting in here is extremely poor, but what we're going to do is we're going to stay up here. Is we need to take this bolt and the one at the bottom loose. So right now the airplane's pretty supported. But what we want to do is take this castellated nut. I've already got the cotter pin out and the washer. One thing you want to check before you even take this bolt out is to see how much pressure's on here. If it takes a sledgehammer to get this bolt out, that means there's weight on the gear, and as soon as that bolt comes out, that gear is going to start swinging, and you don't want that. I'm just wiggling this out by hand pretty much, and there's going to be a little bit of weight because the way the shock strut and the gear are, the geometry and everything, the weight is taking this gear, and the weight, this thing's going to want to swing outwards, and if you have weight on it, what's going to end up happening is the airplane's going to, the gear's going to want to fold out, And so that pressure is going to be trying to force back into the strut. So with hand pressure, I'm just rotating the bolt and following it up with an extension. Now if I can grab that wheel and lift it off the ground, that means it's being supported. Go. Always try to follow up your fastener with either like I'm using a 1/4 inch drive extension. You can see there's just a little bit of pressure still on there, so I might have to wiggle the airplane around a little bit to get this to come loose. There we go. Just that easy. We'll get the bolt on the bottom out and then do the same thing on the other side. If you're going to be leaving the airplane without its struts for any period of time, I have these little angle irons. It goes that way. And these will take the place of the shock strut and will allow you to at least move the airplane around, you know, by hand. I definitely wouldn't fly with these in because that would be shocking. Shocking less. Anyway, so we'll get these things out and we'll get the newly rebuilt ones back in and reverse all the process. When disassembling the struts here, the first thing you want to do is take the plug. Take the plug out of the end of the strut and then try and drain as much of the fluid out as you possibly can. Well, next, we're going to take off the breather bolt right here, and then that'll help drain the rest of the fluid. Come on, take that off. And then I have a pan down here that strut to extend. Well, there it goes, yeah. Extend the strut and then just push. You might have to do this a couple cycles. And what you're wanting is for this to get the air. Right there. Hear that gurgling sound? That's that. Right there. Ooh. And by no means are you going to pretend to reuse this oil. That hydraulic fluid is done its job. Kind of clean that up. I've already broken some of the safety wire off for these pins, and just pull the safety wire out through those. Sometimes these little pins are difficult to get out, and again, that's where these van pliers come in handy, because of the little cutouts. You get a really good firm grip around the outside of these pins, and get all four of these out. This is the top cap, which you can see where the cylinder comes through the top here, and each one of these holes on the side is where those pins go through. You have a packing on the outside, and then there's a packing on the inside. So now that we've got the pins out, the servicing plug is out. and the orifice plug in the cap is out. So this will breathe, and hopefully we've extracted enough of the fluid out that this doesn't make too much of a mess when we go to pop off the top. So I've got the port facing away from me, so when I do this, if there's any residual fluid, it's gonna go away from me. So like I said, this is not elegant by any stretch of the imagination, but what we're gonna try and do is compress the strut and then pull up really quickly. Not elegant at all. Best way to get off any kind of packing is to put pressure along, so I can do this on camera, put pressure along both sides and push up, and that will push your ring out of the way, and you can just simply grab it by hand. No tools required. You're not going to do any damage to the seat where that packing actually lives. The inner one is a little more difficult. I actually have a O-ring extractor. I would recommend using something soft, like a piece of plastic, or they make these special packing seal. It's nice because it has a little hook on the end of it and a little pointy end. And just be real careful with something like this. And then on the inside of the cylinder itself, this is the spring that the airplane actually sits on when it's on the ground. So I just want to send a thank you out to Ken and his guys at Repair Technologies Incorporated. There's a little brochure. You can find them online at rtiseattle.com. They did a bang up job removing all the corrosion from my old cylinders, and here's an example of the old one. It's all worn, and this one wasn't too bad, and that's why I used them, but they leaked a little bit. So these are the old ones, and man, these turned out fantastic. They did a great job. So they were able to turn down and get rid of all the corrosion, and then used a industrial chrome process specifically designed for hydraulics. So this isn't just going out to your chrome place and making it look nice. This is working chrome. So thanks a lot to those guys. So we'll continue on with putting everything back together. So we're just going to go through and replace the O-rings, the packings on the top cap, reassemble everything, fill it back up with 5606, and then reinstall them back in the airplane, just the way we took them apart. So I'm going to upgrade the normal packings that you get for the struts with these nice new quad rings. And the thing about the quad rings is that they're formed in like an X, so on the edge, you'll see there's actually two sealing surfaces. So instead of with an O-ring having one surface, these have two. So, and the part numbers for these are, so for the large seal, it's a 331 November 70 Quebec. And the small inner one is a 325 November 70 Quebec. Ooh, that is a nice tight fit. we've got the struts installed, the bolts are tightened, safetied, and now it's time to service the struts. Now, I've already dropped the airplane back down on the ground. Kind of boring, but the airplane needs to be on the ground for you to service the struts. The reason for that is the struts will be compressed enough. If you service them with them in the air, they're going to be at their maximum capacity. If you fill the oil then and then try to collapse them, then it's going to be too much oil. So either use a syringe, or I just go down to your whatever store and get one of these little squeeze bottles that have these screw-on tops. And these are really good for getting into really tight spaces, but the trick of this is to try to get this in here. I'll use a funnel. Well, that's servicing and replacing the landing gear struts. So I hope you found it helpful, informative, and if you have any questions, get a hold of me. Either leave a comment down below, or you can get me at Instagram at Freedom Fixer. So anyway, we're gonna go out and get everything, get all the rest of the panels back together again, and maybe do a taxi test. Might even take it around the patch once or twice. So, but as always, may all your flying be good flying. Take care.